All right, everybody. Thank you for joining for another episode of The Pursuit of Purpose. Today, I am joined by Kogan, who is a leading behavioral and mindset expert with an expertise in helping individuals and teams release the mental and emotional obstacles that prevent them from adapting to change. She is an executive coach accredited by the International Coach Federation and holds numerous other professional credentials, such as being a trainer of Neuro-Linguistic Programming, or NLP, Hypnotherapy, HeartMath, as well as being a certified practitioner of other leading modalities such as Rapid Transformational Therapy, Psych-K and Havening Techniques. Barrett is the founder and CEO of the Momentum Institute, a training and coaching firm specializing in helping leaders and teams successfully navigate change. Her firm offers a variety of programs and courses on the topics such as mindset, resilience, and change management to help them thrive in our increasingly complex world. Barrett, thanks so much for joining us today.
Pure joy. Thank you for having me.
So the first thing that I noticed when I was reading through your bio is the number of modalities that you are trained in. And my first question was just what led you to that? Was it a recommendation, personal experience on the client side, or what?
Well, I can certainly say that it wasn't completely planned out from the get-go. It was much more of things showing up in my life, trusting my intuition, and going for it. So yes, by recommendation of colleagues. So let's say I was working with clients on mindset, and I encountered some obstacles, maybe certain things were taking longer, and I find out that there are better ways to do it, then I go and learn it because there are so many modalities. And what I love the most is combining the modalities. So within a coaching conversation, to utilize whatever I believe in the moment will help, whether it is Havening Techniques, which is a psychosensory modality that uses touch to the face, the arms, the palms of the hands, or something called EFT tapping, which is used for self-regulation and unblocking energy in the body, or any other modality.
So are you familiar with positive intelligence, or PQ?
I am.
The owner of Webfoot had introduced me and several other people on our team to this. And I'm spacing on the gentleman's name that created that.
Shirzad.
Remember what his name is?
Shirzad,
yeah. But that was my first experience to anything like that. I told my wife about it, and she actually went through the little app training with me. And she was just pointing out to me, she's gone through a number of counseling and EMDR, things like that. And so she actually was super ecstatic that this it was packaged for business and professional, but also personal life as well. And it was just she was pointing out to me all the different things that she's gone through to I guess from an engineering perspective, because I'm an engineer myself, it was I love when there's science to back up to explain why these seemingly odd modalities make sense or scientifically and neurologically affect our behavior, mood, our mindset, and things like that.
Absolutely. And I, as an engineer, as you said, I too value that research. I'm very skeptical by nature. So when I learn a new modality, right, whether it's, like I said, through a recommendation of a colleague, or it happens to land in my inbox and I notice that there's some energy there, I learn it, I practice it first myself, practice it with a handful of people, and then I, believe in it, if you will. I need to have some evidence in my own life and with a handful of people to know that it's something that I'm comfortable sharing with a larger group. And my experience has been that there are some fantastic modalities out there that do work very quickly to release limiting beliefs, negative emotions from the past, so that we can feel even more empowered and deliberate moving forward.
Before we go deeper into the modalities, the one thing I was curious about your engineering background, and I guess I love connecting with engineers that are no longer on the dark side of engineering. They have taken that mindset and those skills and applied them to other professions. Can you tell me a little bit like how does engineering, because I'm sure there's a number of different ways, or your engineering education affect the way you think and approach consulting or business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the answer is a little bit different, whether it's consulting or coaching. Yes. And what I mean by that is consulting is very much of an expertise. Yes, I have expertise that I'm going to share with you. So when I worked as a management consultant at PricewaterhouseCoopers, the engineering served me very well because I had been trained in various things, and I was able to get to the root cause of the problem very quickly and be able to offer solutions. Where it's different in coaching is that the engineering serves me very well to almost like a detective to analyze what is the root cause of the issue that the client is having, whether their issue is I'm stuck in this aspect of my business or I'm stuck in getting healthy. There's something holding me back, and I'm able to, through language, because I'm highly trained in linguistics, to be able to identify what that root cause of the problem is. What are those blocked emotions? What are those limiting beliefs that is manifesting in a certain pattern? So the engineering has served me very well for that. But unlike consulting, I don't then say to the client, here's what you need to do. You need to sell your business. You need to grow this part of your business and so on, because that is not my role to do. But what I do is I help them access their own solutions. We do work on resilience. So I train them on how to tap into their own heart's intuitive guidance, their heart's intelligence to access what is highest and best for them.
When you say limiting beliefs and identifying that from language or linguistics, tell me a little bit. That sounds like a very interesting detective approach to hearing, like listening to someone say something to me, right? But like identifying key words, I'm assuming. I'm kind of trying to extract what you mean by that.
Words and body language. Words and body language. So I can see by looking at their eye patterns, looking at their facial expression, their body language, their tone of voice. Once I know their kind of patterns, what are called meta programs, I can access what is actually going on the inside as they are processing the questions. And so, yes, I'm able to understand what is the truth behind what they're sharing, because oftentimes they're not even conscious of some unconscious programs.
And I'm sure that there's probably some pretty radical differences between what I'm saying and then, like, 10 minutes later in the conversation, what the root cause is. Do you have an example of, like, one time I was talking to this client and this was an issue, or they were saying this, and then it turned out through further questioning that it was actually, the stepfathers, the way they were treated when they were a kid, or something that's like completely seemingly unrelated, but completely related in the way that they are thinking or behaving. Is that correct?
Yeah, a very simple example is yesterday I was doing a breakthrough with a client, and we were releasing some emotions from her past, blocked emotions like anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, and so on. And when we were working on guilt, and I said, is it all right for your unconscious mind to release this emotion today and for you to be aware of it consciously? There was a pause, and then she said, yeah. So of course, right, I know that there is some secondary gain, what we call secondary gain. There's some benefit to the unconscious mind for holding on to the emotion. And so we did some reframing. We helped her understand that holding on to the emotion is not healthy for her, because the unconscious mind cares first and foremost about our health. Its number one job is to run and preserve our bodies. So we were able to collaborate with her mind to help her to let it go. And it was very transformational for her.
That's awesome. Speaking of, if I'm understanding your expertise in what you do, it seems like change and then mindset are probably the two topics that are most, that you are most expert at. Those are your focuses. Is that correct?
It is all anchored in change, positive behavioral change. And what I mean by that is sustainable change. And for it to be sustainable, we got to work at the unconscious level. We got to go deep because it's the unconscious mind that is really driving our behavior. And so, yes, I am a coach, and everything that I train on, whether it's resilience or mindset or change management, is very forward focused. And what we know is that conscious intention is not enough. So I can set a goal and I could be all in, yes, very motivated to achieve this goal. But if I'm driven to achieve this goal in order to avoid pain, then what's going to happen is that I might take some steps and lessen the pain, but then my unconscious mind is still holding on to the root of the problem. Yes, I'm still kind of addicted to certain emotions. Then my unconscious mind might then say, oh, no more, right? We got to go back to the way it was. Yes, because that's what you told me many years ago, usually between the ages of 0 to 6, that is going to help you to stay safe. So we want to work with releasing the emotions that are creating the manifestation of the problem so that it doesn't repeat itself.
And I've heard you said 0 to 6, and I have heard this a number of times. My wife and I have 3 kids, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 4-month-old. And that's making me think, from a parenting side, is there things that, I don't know, like parenting advice or tips that I feel like Natalie and I have talked a lot about how we realize now the different ways that we were, screwed up by our parents, joking in some sense, but also like we were impacted heavily by our parents is the reality in ways that we maybe know or have no idea about. And what are the things that my thought is there a way that we can teach kids at a young age to release emotions that aren't serving them? Or like, is there like, you got to be 15 years old or 12 years old before you're even able to do that?
So the answer is yes, absolutely. There are ways, and I'll share those in a moment. And just a quick point that I know you know, of course, that you are always doing the best that you can. So is Natalie and every other parent out there, with the state that you are in, of course, as you're parenting and what you know, the resources that are available to you. And of course, the same for all of our parents. Yes, even the ones who perhaps didn't treat us as well as they could have. In the moment, as they were parenting, they were doing the best that they could, which oftentimes is a reflection of how they grew up, or, kind of the lineage, if you will. So we always want to take ownership. And that is the empowerment in this work, right? And I'm not the victim to the conditioning, because at the end of the day, I chose to accept the conditioning. You could have 2 individuals living in the same household, one that accepted that conditioning and one that said, no, I'm going to do exactly the opposite. Yes. So we are always a choice. We get to choose what we accept. And of course, then with repetition, that creates certain patterns in our life. So in terms of what we can do as parents, absolutely. First and foremost, we want to train our children to label their emotions, to express their emotions, because emotions are energy that needs to move. And so oftentimes when I work with clients doing breakthrough work, it's because they couldn't express themselves when they were little. They couldn't say to somebody that they are angry or that they are sad. It wasn't safe to do that. It wasn't welcome to do that, right? We needed to just be positive and just focus on the good and do things to advance. And so what we want is to make it okay to feel sad, to make it okay to be angry or worried or whatever that might be, and to help children release that energy. So once they get the gift of the learning, because every emotion has a gift, there is no negative emotion, so to speak, in the sense that all emotions have gifts of information. We just don't want to hold on to it because that's toxic to the body. And so what we want to do is to train them on simple tools like a quick coherence technique, which is something that you and I can even do together now if you want. It's very simple, and we can absolutely train very young kids to do this. Would you like to learn it?
Yeah, let's do it. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we always start by labeling how we feel. So whether we're children or we are adults, right? We begin with, how am I feeling in this moment? So go ahead and give that a name. And of course, in the resilience training that I do, we train specifically on how to to do that, we give some tools. For kids, you can say to them, how's the weather in your world right now? Is it stormy and cold, or is it nice and sunny, right? You can kind of give them language, right? Or what color does it feel like? It really doesn't matter. The point is for them to pause and label how they feel, because when they do, they communicate with their unconscious mind. So they label how they feel, and go ahead and do that if you have.
Yeah, I would say for myself, I would say at this moment, I'm like a combination of distracted and energetic, just like mind racing. I don't know if that's an emotion, but that's how I would describe that currently.
Mm-hmm. So the mind racing is creating what? How does that make you feel?
Maybe a little bit of an anxiety, or just I'm thinking distress, or just like it's like now it's like deconstructing what happens in an interview. I'm like focused on, okay, what are we talking about? What's interesting to me? What's the next question going to be? And trying to like take all of that in and plan. And so I don't know if that makes sense, but that's my answer.
It's perfect. And it's perfect because it's how you really feel right now. So that's really cool, right? You labeled kind of what's happening and the emotion, anxiety. And remember I said every emotion has a gift. So let's play for a second. What's the gift of anxiety? The gift of anxiety is that it tells us either there is too much information going on, I don't have enough information, yes, or I don't know what to do with the information. Yeah. So it's the gift of clarity, because if I don't have enough information, I can go get it. Yes. If there's too much, right, then there's the overwhelm, right? I need to kind of focus. So the idea here is that every emotion has a gift. So right now there's a little bit of anxiety. Perfect. How do you want to feel?
Focused, present, calm, confident.
Fantastic. Excellent. Now, why did I ask you how you want to feel? It's very important to set intentions. Very important to set intentions. You'll get much better results in any modality, self-regulation modality, when you first set an intention for how you want to feel, because your unconscious mind is listening for that as well. Yeah? Good. So you want to feel more focused and so on. Beautiful. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 2 steps together. It's called the Quick Coherence Technique. It was developed by the Institute of HeartMath, which is a research institution that studies the communication between the heart and the brain, right? And I'm going to say heart brain and head brain because the heart is a brain. There's a complex neural network around the heart. By the way, also in the gut, there is an enteric brain. Okay? So when we do this technique, what happens is that we get more coherent. There's a different signal going up from our heart, the physical organ of our heart, up to the thalamus in our brain that controls all the wonderful executive functions, like the frontal cortex, that controls language and decision making and so on. So the technique has 2 steps. The first is we're going to do what's called heart-focused breathing. And heart-focused breathing really just means focusing the attention in the heart and imagining as if you're breathing in and out of your heart slowly and deeply. And then we're going to add a positive emotion, what we call a regenerative emotion, that kind of is going to fill up our inner battery. Yes, that allows us to shift the focus into a higher, more elevated emotion. And when we do that, like I said, we change the signal or intensify the signal if we're feeling a positive emotion to begin with. That will allow us to be more coherent, which means that we can make better decisions. We can think more clearly. We're also have better immune system and all of many benefits to that. Now, why is this important for children? We'll do the technique in a moment. It's important because it gives them power, right? They get to label how they feel and how they want to feel. And then right then and there, they can physiologically synchronize their body systems, getting into an optimal state of performance and health, where their immune system, their nervous systems, their digestive, cardiovascular, all the systems in their body will be working harmoniously. Yes. And that is a wonderful state to be in, because then they can access higher thoughts. They can see the situation that created the emotion to begin with in a more objective way versus being rooted in some of these old patterns. Yes? So you ready to play?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So go ahead and focus all of your attention in the area of your heart. If you'd like, you can place your hand over your heart or chest area and just focus all of your attention there. That's right. By the way, this is a technique that can be done with your eyes open or closed. It's different than meditation. We're accessing a state of active ease. So you can do this while you're driving, in a meeting, or with your children. So you're focusing your attention in the area of your heart. Now imagine, just pretend that your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or chest area, breathing a little slower and deeper than you normally do. Find an easy rhythm that's comfortable. Now, make a sincere attempt to experience a regenerative feeling, such as appreciation or care for someone or something in your life. Perhaps you can try to re-experience the feeling of love that you have for someone, maybe even a pet, maybe focusing on a place in nature or an accomplishment, or just breathing in a feeling of calm and ease in and out of your heart. And just begin to notice any subtle shifts in your body, maybe in how you feel right now. Just notice what you notice and set an intention to anchor this feeling throughout the rest of our conversation, the rest of the day, and being with your children tonight, Chris. How are you feeling?
Good. A lot like it's just if I had a heart monitor, I'm sure my heart rate would be a little slower. But yeah, just more. Yeah, I would say more at peace for sure.
Yeah.
More content.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you said monitor, because we do have monitors. For example, let me grab mine over here, right? That clips onto the ear from HeartMath, where we can actually do these techniques as we are measuring our heart rate variability, which is the biggest indicator of that state of health and optimal performance. So you'll be able to see in real time that your coherence has shifted, has improved, increased, as you do a technique like this, because the body will give us instant feedback. Now, when we're doing this with children, we want to change the words, of course, make it simpler. Yeah. So we ask them how they're feeling. Like I said, they could even name it as an animal, right? What animal do you feel like right now? Or what color? Or, what's the weather in your world right now? Or you can also give them a page of all kinds of faces, right? A smiley face, a saddy face, an angry face, and let them point from there, right? All kinds of ways when working with children. And then say, well, how do you want to feel right now? And of course, have them point or label that. And then say, cool, just go ahead and let's do some pretending here. Let's pretend like your breath is actually flowing in and out of your heart. So can you breathe in and out of your heart? Just imagine that, kind of help them to imagine that. Getting to nice, easy breath. The key is to focus the heart.
Really quick, if they said I want to feel angry right now or whatever,
good point.
That's like great. Let's go ahead and feel angry like that. You just let them just experience that.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. You enter into their world. Okay, let's do angry right now. How do we do angry? right? Show me your angry
Yeah.
face. Show me your angry body, right? What do you want to
Yeah.
say? Make it okay, right? Because that energy needs to leave the body. That's right.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
say
That's
it's all
awesome.
play and fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very cool. I'm just thinking, yeah, it's cool to think of, like, because I've experienced this, and even that exercise we just did was very reminiscent of the PQ reps the PQ system, PQ reps, whatever. But I'm sure it's because it's based in, I don't know which modality that would be, or several corresponding ones, correct?
Yes. So, yes, it is. And the idea here is that we want to first become conscious of how we're feeling, right? Or the saboteur, if you will, that's at play.
Mm-hmm.
And once we accept that, then we can activate our sage. Yes, we can activate a positive feeling. What's nice about HeartMath is that the first step is to first synchronize our system, because sometimes it's really hard to go from, let's say, angry to feeling focused or peaceful or ease. So that middle point, that first step where we say, okay, let's focus our attention in our heart, breathing in and out of our heart slowly and deeply, that synchronizes the body system. Yeah, so we're kind of in this place of like sympathetic, which is the active go 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 stress response, and parasympathetic, which is the relaxation, kind of calm response. We need to synchronize that. That gets our body into neutral, and then we can choose whether we want to activate a positive feeling. But we first want to get our body into that state of neutral, kind of more objective place. Yes, so we're not simmering in
Mm.
the anger, right? We're getting into neutral, and then we can choose whether or not we want to activate the sage, any elevated emotion, any higher frequency emotion.
Gotcha. And I'm assuming that. So I'm trying to apply this back to business work, whatever. The same thing could be, like, we have one-on-ones that we do at Webfoot. Is this are pieces of this something that you would recommend? Obviously, you'd have to learn and understand how to share this, teach it, coach it, whatever. But is this something that managers would do with people that they're managing, or is that rare? Is it, you know what I'm saying? Like, what aspects of this are like, yeah, go ahead, take this and run with it, versus like, you probably should like have years of education before you try to use this with someone. You know what I'm saying?
No, you don't have to have years of information and education training to use this. So it's kind of a big question what you asked, because there is the actual use of the tools, and there is the being with people in that emotional space, in that vulnerable emotional space, which is a related but a different conversation. So if we were to look only, first of all, at the tools themselves, let's say what you've just learned. So I have a team that works with me, and we work with organizations using one of the HeartMath programs called Activating the Heart of Teams. And so we go into leadership teams and help them to everyone to be trained in these modalities. They actually start meetings with tools like the quick coherence technique, which typically cuts meeting times in half, because there's a more coherent field environment. By the way, this is virtual
Mm.
or in person. And we can actually measure that with the Global Coherence app. We can actually measure the coherence of the team, yes, in real time. And so we can make sure that everybody is coherent, which means that you're going to access the best ideas. There won't be so much drama or conflict, if
Mm.
you will, because everyone's in that higher, more objective place, not being driven by their old patterns, the saboteurs, as you would call them in the PQ program.
Mm.
So yes, and we go in and we train on teams and or company wide on how to be more resilient. How do I label my emotions? How do I shift and reset? How do I build my inner battery? Yes, so that I can be more resilient. So no matter what comes, I'm not in that drained kind of low energy place where I just overreact or make a bad decision, or God forbid, get some diagnosis at a doctor's office. So we want to make sure that everyone has the tools that they can utilize. So that's how to use the tools themselves. And there are a variety of them. And I train on the HeartMath tools. I teach trainings on how to use modalities like Havening, even at a meeting, just gently touching the palms together. That sends nice, calming, soothing delta electrical signals to the amygdala, saying it's all right, right? So you can do that during meetings under the table. Nobody knows what you're doing, and you're calming your body. So there are many, many ways to use the body to self-regulate in the moment. Now, the bigger conversation is around change management, yes, which is how do we help people adapt to change? And what we know is that their emotions, their state, has a very big role to play in that, because they need to be emotionally invested in the change. If there are any beliefs that are not aligned with the change, let's say, I don't believe I, right? Yes, maybe the team could do it, but I don't believe I could do it, or I'm worthy enough, or I don't know how to do it, or I don't think we're going to get enough budget or enough support, or I'm already overwhelmed with what I have on my plate right now. Any of those kinds of beliefs are going to manifest as resistance. Yes, where consciously or unconsciously, they're just not going to adapt their behavior in a sustainable way. They will kind of maybe take some steps forward, and then as soon as there's some stress or weakness or something showing up, they're going to go back to the old ways, which is what we often see when there isn't proper change management being put into place. So we absolutely do want to train managers, any leader in the organization, and it starts from the sponsor, the initiator of the change, which is often the CEO or president of the company, to know how to help themselves and others go through the psychological transition of a change, because any change really is about going from a current state, right, to a future state, right, at the simplest kind of way. But really what we often forget, because we as leaders are so focused on the end game, right, like what are we going to benefit, right, the cost benefits, higher productivity, better efficiencies, whatever that might be, we forget the psychological transition that happens in between. Yes, because that's the place where it's kind of a make it or break it. Yes. So what oftentimes happens is that managers and leaders get so excited at the beginning of the change, and they'll communicate that, and they'll be all in, and then they take a step back and they get busy with other projects, and they forget that it's not enough to just announce the change and assume that people know why it's important, and and why it's important right now, and how to do it, and all of that. And so we want to make sure that we're offering support throughout the project. So training managers, for example, we go in and train on change management using the ProSci methodology. I'm not sure if you're familiar with ProSci. It's one of the most leading change management methodologies, very much anchored in research, over 20 years of research now, with thousands of organizations across all industries and everywhere in the world, really every continent. What's amazing that we see is that when we help people to understand why the change is needed, yes, when there is awareness, right? A standing for awareness. The model is ADKAR, ADKAR. A for awareness. Why do we need the change? Why now? And what's going to happen if we don't change? Yes, people need that. Oftentimes, that's the biggest core of resistance, is that people don't know that. So once we give them the awareness, and that comes from the very top, yes, of the organization, the sponsor of the change or the coalition of the change, around why from a business perspective. But it is the immediate supervisors or managers that need to give kind of the personal messages. Why for you, Bob and Judy and Jenny, right? Why for you is this change is important? Yes, why do we need to do this now? Then the D stands for desire. That's one thing we can't control. Yes, we can't make somebody want to change, right? We can't make our kids want to make their bed, right? Or eat their vegetables, right? Same idea. But we can influence that by helping them to perceive that it's in part their idea, right? To give them some agency or control over it. So explaining to them why, it's important to them, like what's in it for them, yes? And helping to connect with their values, what's important to every single individual. Once we focus on desire, then we have, of course, we need some, very obviously like knowledge about how to do the behavior that we need to do, this new behavior. So knowledge is very important, but we all know knowledge is not enough. We also need the ability to do it, the coaching, the mentoring, the ongoing support, right? When we stumble, to get that support and coaching. And of course, reinforcement. The R stands for reinforcement. Right? Once the change is already in place and people are adapting their behavior, we can't just move on to the next thing. We got to remember positive reinforcement, just like with our kids. Yes? Reinforce, reinforce, reinforce until those new programs, neural programs, those new behavioral strategies are really anchored in at an unconscious level, because otherwise they're going to go back to the old ways. And it does take time to build that circuitry.
Is this so? I've heard that you talk about 3 stages of change. Is that, or how do those tie into this ADKAR acronym?
Mm-hmm. So the 3 stages, right, being current, kind of transition, and future state. In the current state, which is how things are right now, what oftentimes people forget is that there's a grief. Yes, there's a letting go, a loss, and people feel sad, even if it's a change that we welcome, right? We need to say goodbye to something before we say hello to the new thing. Yes, we got to unplug, if you will, from one world and plug into a new world. So there's an ending. And that ending has a lot of emotions associated with it. So when we talk about the kind of awareness and desire, that needs to be at the very, very, very beginning. Yes, even before all the trainings and everything, like to get people even engaged so they'll want to learn, so they'll want to engage in the new behavior. So absolutely, awareness and desire is very early on. And that's why we want to make sure that we've got those communication strategies in place in advance. Yes. And also assessing what are some of the resistance gaps. So having some interviews with key individuals, what might be some of the issues or objections, making sure that we build those into our communication plan in advance. Yes. To soothe people, so to speak, before the issue even comes up. So and hopefully, lessen resistance from showing up. So that's kind of the A and D of the ADKAR. The knowledge and ability is more kind of in the middle zone,
Transition.
the no man's land, what we would call the transition, the psychological transition, this kind of neutral zone, because we want to make sure that people have the ability and the knowledge, the skills to do what we need them to do. We can't assume that they know how to do it. Yes, or just because one person in the team knows how to do it, we can't assume that everybody does. So that's that. And then the reinforcement is more in the future state, right? That new beginning, if you will. We got to reinforce, reinforce, reinforce. Yeah.
I'm interested. I just love trying to apply this to a very specific example. I'm trying to, as you were speaking about these different, or that acronym, awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, reinforcement. This is a very simple example that happened this week. So project management, right? I'm going to give you the scenario and you can tell me if this is applicable. I assume it is, but we have a marketing team at Webfoot of 5 people plus myself, and we are, constantly working with each other, but then also the sales and production, everybody else as well. And we have Asana. I don't know if you've heard of Asana, the task management. It's just like there's tons of apps out there that are basically like a to-do list tracker, and you can assign and collaborate and make projects and set due dates and stuff. And recently, everybody, including probably led by myself, fell off of that discipline of just when you have a to-do, put it in the system and set a date, put in the notes and make subtasks and assign those subtasks to the relevant parties and all that. We were in this, our weekly meeting and discussing this. It's like, okay, we know what we need to do and we all are in agreement on this. But how, I guess from my perspective as the manager of this group, the change that I want is for everybody in the group to begin using Asana again in the way that we all want to, but it's just I think it's discipline of and slowing down and not rushing to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing without capturing the to-dos of the current project you're working on or the meeting that you're in. Is that too abstract of a scenario, or is that something specific that is you would first, run through these steps? I'm trying to understand how I would better bring the team along. And then also it's like acknowledging and being self-aware myself that I'm also much in need of the change as well.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying?
So yeah, let's play. You want to play a little bit with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So absolutely, it starts with you. Okay. So let's start with that. So I would, connect with why is this important for me? right? Why is this important for me? Because your own unconscious mind needs to know that this is something that's safe for you. Yes, that it's going to be beneficial for you, and that it's something that you can do. Yes, that you absolutely can do, right? Given all the other tasks that you have, the time that you want to devote to your family or to your health, right? So I would work on your own mindset first, and we can come back to that if you want some tools, if there's some resistance for yourself to help you to do that. So it starts with you. What we know from research is that, employee resistance to change is the number one reason that change programs fail. And in most cases, it's due to the sponsor. We know that the sponsor is the key, right? So that means you, as the sponsor, if you will, of this change, right, the initiator of this, right, of kind of going back to this habit, you have to kind of manage the ABCs of sponsorship, which is the A stands for, actively and visibly communicating throughout the entire the entire project. Yes. So let's say we're going to do this for 3 months or 6 months, whatever timeline you set to it. Okay. I wouldn't make it like indefinitely, right? But I would say let's commit to doing this for a certain period of time. Does that make sense? Yeah, that might be a little bit easier.
Yeah, just saying like okay, we're going to set a goalpost of February. Can we all commit to just dial it in, focus, let's commit to this. And then at February, we decide, was this good? Should we stop it? But that's what you're saying, like, so it's not this indefinite thing that just kind of trickles out and loses steam, because you're not going to do anything forever.
Well, you might, but you want to build momentum. So you want, right? It just at the beginning, it helps because and the reason I say this, there is some history. Yes. So you've kind of done this, and then there was kind of a taking a step back. So that's why I'm saying, let's kind of chunk it down, make it more of like a project. Yes. Let's do this project for this period of time, kind of thing. The B stands for building a coalition. So I know you said it's 5 people plus you. So maybe, engaging, some of those individuals, or maybe people outside of your marketing team to kind of support you in this. Maybe there are other leaders who are looking to use this same software, task software, that maybe can kind of support you in this. We'll talk more about that if you'd like. But the building of the coalition is important, especially when we're talking about an organization that has many layers. We want to have a coalition of managers and peers to make sure it's not all on the sponsor, yes, on the CEO or president, to do everything, of course, with regards to managing the people side of change. Then, the C is about communicating directly with people. Because a lot of CEOs, what they do is that they delegate that, like to a manager or maybe to an outside consultant, but it needs to be them doing it, and they need to play the part, yes, throughout the entire length of the project for however long it is. So that's kind of the ABCs, if you will, for the sponsor. So let's go back now to the ADKAR model for this particular example. So A stands for awareness. Why do we need to do this? Right? Or do this again, right? Why now, and what's going to happen if we don't? Really important. What's going to happen, big picture for the organization, what's going to happen with our team for the project, and so on. Okay? It's really, it's important that they know why. I mean, think of your kids, right? If you tell them, they're still little, but maybe the 4-year-old, right? If you say is it a him or a her?
A her, Ellie.
Ellie, awesome. So if you say to Ellie, hey, Ellie, you have to do what? What does she have to do? Let's play with this.
Brush your teeth before bed.
Cool. You have to brush your teeth before bed. But why, Daddy? Right? Why? Right? They need to know why. Ooh, because, right? And use their words, right? You want your teeth to be nice and white and shiny, like Snow White or whatever. Yes. You kind of play with her world. And that will motivate her, right, to want that. Yeah. So you want to, as much as possible, kind of make it about them, which feeds into desire, right? D for desire. Like, why would Ellie want to brush her teeth? Why would your team members want to go back to this? Clearly, there's a reason, why not, right? Probably busy or whatever, distracted. But we want to make sure that we speak their language. So I would go to each one of my team members, especially it's a small team like this, and say, what's important to you about this? What's important to you about this?
About using or being on top of your tasks or whatever. That's the issue that we're talking about.
Correct.
Is everybody realizing that they're slipping, right?
And you can also kind of chunk chunk up, right? Kind of go bigger, right? What's important to you about your work? What's important to you about this project, right? And use their words. Well, what's really important to me is making sure that I can have, enough time to get home by 5 o'clock every day, let's say, right? Or to pick up my daughter or my son or whatever it is. Then say, great. Well, if we do this, right, here's how, yes, it's going to take more time up front, but here's how it's going to save us time, save you time down the road. Yeah. So I'm just going to, the idea is you want to use their words, whatever is important to them, to help them build a desire and to say to them, right, to kind of co-create this together, give them a choice. Well, this is what we need. Yes, we need the tasks in this. What might be the easiest way for you to do this, right? And let them decide how and when, that kind of thing, as much as possible.
And you would do this one-on-one, not as a group.
In a situation like this, it's up to you as the leader. Again, I don't know. Sometimes you want to do both, of course. But it's a small team. And so what my recommendation, because there's already some resistance, I would first get in, well, what's happening? What's the block? I would get their words for the resistance. So you're dealing with the real problem, yes, and not what you believe might be the problem. Because it might not be about not having enough time. Maybe they don't like the software. Maybe it's redundant. Maybe,
yeah, exactly.
Right? Maybe there's another solution that's even better. Who knows? But the idea here is that you do want to understand what the gaps are. So when you are communicating, you're addressing the real issues, not just what you assume or hallucinate are the issues. And so then you have the awareness, you help them build desire by co-creating this, giving them some choices in this, helping them to feel they've got some agency. It's not just, Chris saying you gotta do this. Yes. Because that's not going to engage them. We want to engage them at an emotional level, right? That's true engagement at an unconscious. They're bought in because they have a say in it and they're excited about it. It aligns with their top values. Yes?
And so, for example, just trying to make this super relevant for myself, but hopefully in doing so for anyone listening to this, that one of the main things that I've, with a number of people on the team, is they keep paper to-do lists. They just, they have a sheet on their desk and they just write down all the things they have to do to kind of empty their mind. Or in a meeting, they're taking notes. So it's like I'm making assumptions based on when I used to do this. There's benefit or like to writing it out and physically putting it on paper. There's like some intrinsic value for whatever reason for us to do that. But then after the fact, now I've got to transcribe everything that I wrote on paper onto the computer, and that could take me 15 minutes, depending upon how many notes I took, as opposed to just taking it directly in the software to begin with or on some other digital method and then copying and pasting it over, which still is not ideal, but maybe better or maybe not better. I don't know. But that's like a specific thing where it'd be, if I'm trying to apply what you're saying, it would be someone talking through like, how do you, like, what is your solution right now to keep track of things that you have to do? What do you like or not like about that solution? And is there anything that, like, is this getting you to the, like, are you getting what you want out of your current setup? Because maybe they are, in which case, I guess then it's like, okay, how do we make sure that other people are aware of what's on your plate so they know when they can or can't assign? Does that make sense?
It does. I think, again, and there's more to this, but I would say, first of all, you as the leader need to make a decision. Is this a must or not? Because you don't want to make it a choice, right? If it's not, it's either everybody does this or everybody does not, I imagine. So you either make that decision or you first get some information and then make that decision. But let's pretend that a decision is made. Yes, this is a go. This is the software we're going to continue to use. Then you want to understand what is the real resistance. Right? So what are the buts? Yes, I want this, but why are they not doing it or not doing it consistently? So understand that, and then you'll understand where is the gap. Is it awareness? Maybe they're not really aware of why this is important, why it's important for them, right? What's in it for them. Maybe it's a knowledge issue. Maybe it's, they're not quite sure how to do it. Maybe they don't have the ability. There's too much on their plate. Maybe we need to lessen their load to give them an extra 15 minutes a day to do this. Yes. So, right, they're meaning maybe they don't have to attend every meeting that is on their calendar. Maybe we can delegate some of their stuff or move stuff around to give them the extra time. And that's allocated time for this. Yes. And then, of course, reinforcement. Once you see them doing it, even doing it once a week or whatever that is, to reinforce. Now, of course, there could be accountability structures and all that in place, celebrations, right? So after a week, everybody's doing this. Let's order pizza. Let's leave an hour early. Let's whatever, right? Do something fun together. Celebrate, make it fun.
Gotcha. So I don't know if you had anything else. I kind of derailed that you were talking about the ad car. Was that, I get what you're saying. Is there anything else you want to add to that particular scenario?
I think at the end of the day, Chris, as a leader, it's about being with your people. It's about them feeling heard and validated and acknowledged. There might be a whole lot of frustration and irritation with this program. Maybe they've tried and it didn't work, right? There might be stuff. And maybe there's also personal stuff. Maybe they have a habit, a program, an imprint that they're all in on something, and then the moment it's hard, they disengage. Yes. And or maybe they believe that they're not good with technology, or who knows what beliefs people have. The idea here is that we want to be very compassionate and very present with them when we're asking the questions. So I would first get coherent, yes, before engaging with them about this. So, and set an intention to stay in that, place of ease and curiosity rather than judgment, and just be present with them and say, hey, I'm sensing that there's a lot of frustration around this, or maybe say, I noticed that you did this for a few months and that's really cool, right? What worked for you? What did you enjoy and what didn't work, right? But just be really curious, like a little detective, right? Doing exploration work and get to the real heart of the problem. And when you do that, I imagine probably there's some, things that you're going to hear over and over between the team. And I'm sure they've talked between themselves, right, about that, is to say, okay, so, this is the issue. What can we do about it, right? What can we do to make this even easier? What do you guys need? Yeah. What do you need? I'm sensing, there's frustration about this. I mean, my goodness, I would be frustrated too. In fact, I am. I myself stopped using it, right? Right. Well, what's going to help? And if the decision is not carved in stone to stick with this particular program, to say, hey, listen, there's some flex here, right? I know we need something, but this doesn't have to be it. What do you guys suggest? What, maybe you've heard of other things or used other things privately or in other jobs. What might be even better? Right? If that is an option.
Yeah. Something that I, when I came across Carol Dweck's book a while ago, I must have been 7-8 years ago, I think, fixed versus growth. How does that differ because you have a podcast called the Mindset, what is it? Mindset Game,
That's
correct?
Right.
Yeah. So how is when you talk about mindset, are you talking about the same mindset that Carol Dweck does for anyone that's read her book, or is it something different or a variation of that?
So mindset is really a set of beliefs. Yes. And we have many different mindsets about many different things, right? Like I have certain mindsets about change. I have certain mindsets about parenting, certain mindsets about health, about leadership. Yes. What I believe is the way that things should be, or how people should be. And so Carol Dweck did a lot of research initially in her work around mindsets related to intelligence and our abilities. So let's say ability to use software, right, in a very specific way, like you're suggesting, ability to run a marathon, ability to be artistic, ability to do math, ability to do anything. So the topic of mindset is broader, if you will, but she kind of chunked it down to specifically our beliefs about how smart, not so smart, or, we are, right, the intelligence level, and how we can or cannot do something. Because when we can develop the belief that we can do something, meaning it's safe for us to do that we can do it with enough time and effort that we're going to be able to do it, what she calls growth mindset, then our unconscious mind will allow us to do those behaviors over and over and over again until the unfamiliar becomes familiar, and then it becomes more comfortable and the body doesn't want to resist it. And then we begin to accept the change and be even really excited about it. So it's all about mindset. So the work that I do with people, whether it's in organizations or individuals, we always work with the deeper mindsets, because for sustainable change, we got to work at that level. Otherwise, we're just giving people a bunch of strategies, like, that may or may not lead to behavioral change. And this is why most change programs fail, because they just work um, on the surface level. Yes.
Gotcha. So if I were to phrase it or put it in my words, that there's a lot more nuance and like intricacies when it comes to your mindset. Carol Dweck just said it's binary, you're fixed or your growth. And if you can shift to the growth mindset, that's when possibility opens up, because you're not telling, your subconscious is not telling you it's not possible. Is that
Yeah, it is binary in the
close?
sense of, yes, is it possible or isn't it possible? But sometimes we consciously believe it's possible, but our unconscious mind does not believe that it's safe to
Mm,
do that, right? So let's play the example of somebody who, so let's say the example that, of a client I spoke with yesterday, not the same person, another one. So she is a leader in an organization, and she has she's building a nonprofit, and many ideas, and doing really well, but there is a part of her that's holding herself back. There are certain beliefs about her being visible, how safe it is to be visible, to really be actively out there. And so every time she kind of starts, she's very successful, but then it's like there's like a stop. Yes, it's like her body
mm,
is, there's some self-sabotage that begins to happen, like she starts to back away or something. And so we're working with releasing the root emotions that created that problem and the mindsets. So that when she is taking those actions, she feels ease, she feels congruent, she feels inspired, versus something I need to do. Yes, like I'm forcing myself to do it. Because, we say in the program that I offer, it's called Mind Shift, that we got to first work with the desire to get clear on what we want, and then release any resistance to that, stay coherent, and then access the strategies and take the actions. Most people start with, okay, I need my team to do this, or I want to lose weight, or I want to build this company. But what happens is that if they're not very clear about why they are doing it, what are the kind of emotions that they want to feel, what's the real driver, and what it will look like when they achieve it, then their unconscious mind can't really help them. The unconscious
mm.
mind needs to know specifically what you want. Yes, and it needs to be congruent with your values. Secondly, we got to understand what, if anything, is holding us back. Yes. So I want this, but what are the buts, right? Or I can't have it because. And so once we identify those mindsets, then we shift those. Then there is the staying coherent, right? State. You got to stay coherent, right? To not create new patterns that might get in your way, right? To really condition your mind and body. And there are many ways to do that. And then, of course, accessing the strategies. But when you're coherent, you have access to your heart's intuitive guidance that would tell you what is the next right step for you. Yeah. And of course, then taking the action. But most people start with strategy and action. Tell me what I need to do. Let me hire the consultant, read the book, take the course, listen to the podcast episode, and then they take the actions. And yes, they may get to where they want, but usually it takes longer and it's very depleting. Yes, there's a lot of stress.
Mm.
But when we start with desire, getting clear about what you want and why you want it, releasing any resistant, or limiting mindset, getting into the right state, then it's easier. Then you can access the path of least resistance and feel really excited and inspired to take that massive action, because it's going to fill your battery rather than deplete your battery.
Mm. That's awesome.
Because your conscious and unconscious mind are working together rather than one against the other, right? I want this, but where it's like this tug of war.
That's awesome. I have so many other questions that I want to ask, but in the essence of time, my last three questions for you that are going to be quick. First one, what are you most proud of so far in your career?
I think that I would say more recently, I got feedback. I did a keynote a couple of weeks ago, and somebody from the group sent me an email and said, I could really feel your love. And this is the first time where I was able to see my own worth. So that was a really exciting thing to hear. It was an 1.5-hour presentation. Another one that sticks out is I did a training for somebody that I did a breakthrough with. This is now a couple of years ago, and it was like a full day training with his team on resilience and mindset. And when we were talking about kind of beliefs, and I said, well, we were kind of inviting people to share some limiting beliefs. And he got up and he said, well, I used to believe that I'm not worthy, that I'm not good enough. And I used to believe, right, this and that, but I don't believe it anymore. And it was really cool to kind of see that. So I would say those were kind of moments that stand out for me right now.
Those two moments just are a reminder to me that words of affirmation is something that I'm sure you've heard of the 5 love languages. That's one of my love languages. And Natalie and I have talked a lot about just like when you give a talk or something like that, the importance of how many people in the audience, or how many times have I been in an audience and thought something like that, and then just been like, I'm sure that they're going to get tons of people to tell them how great they are or whatever, and then everyone leaves, right? But or at least that's the story that I tell myself. But the importance of pausing and either sending a note or going up and shaking someone's hand and saying, I just need to tell you how impactful this was, or I can see your love for the topic. I tell myself, for every person that said something nice to me, there's probably, this is maybe the ego in my head that's like, there was 10 other people that also thought it but didn't say it, right? So there's a percentage, like a small percent are actually going to go out of their way to leave you that feedback or that comment or tell you. And so there's two sides of that. Well, first is you should do that when you feel that, this is what I tell myself, to make sure you share that with someone because of how beneficial that can be for any of us. And then the other side is know that when you do receive feedback, there was probably, maybe it's not 10 other people, but there was several other people that also had that same impact. And this was the one that said something, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And when you shared that, what came up for me is, I think this specific thing that was valuable to me is to help them, that they were able to see their own light. Because I know it's not about what I said or did in the presentation. It's about what they received and gave themselves permission to feel. So them seeing their own light, I think that's what drives me to do what I do.
The real value.
People to connect with their own worth, their own self-love, self-compassion, because then everything else will work out for them. I know it without a doubt.
That's awesome. Book recommendations. What are your favorites?
Well, on the topics that we've been talking today, without a doubt, Think and Grow Rich. I love that. Not because of some people say rich, okay, money, but it's rich in every sense of the word. I would say it's abundance, right? Become a better parent, think and become a great leader, a very healthy person, whatever it might be, a happy person. It's all the same, but I really, really value Napoleon Hill's work on that because I believe it's absolutely true. And I would say The Alchemist. That's one I was just kind of speaking with
Paul
my daughter
Coelho.
about. Yeah, I believe that there's so many juicy nuggets in there, once again, that are absolutely true.
That's awesome. I need to read Think and Grow Rich again. I read that a long time ago. And even The Alchemist, I always get stuck in the nonfiction world. And that's one of the few fiction books that I've read. And it's so good.
Yeah,
I completely endorse that recommendation. It's a great one.
One of my favorite quotes is from Napoleon Hill in the book Think and Grow Rich, which is, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. And it's everything we've talked about today. If you can imagine something, conceive something, and you can believe it, it's achievable. 100%. You will access the strategies and you will feel inspired to take those actions, which will lead to the results. But you've got to have conscious, unconscious, what we call integration. The conscious mind and the unconscious mind need to work together so you can access those that higher guidance from what HeartMath calls non-local intuition.
That's awesome. And last question, what is your favorite movie?
I have many of them, but I would say one that I saw this past weekend that was kind of sticking in my mind right now is I think it's called King Richard. It's like the Williams sisters. Venus and Serena Williams. It's about their dad and how he imagined their success even before they were born, and and kind of took those actions. And then, of course, we all know the end of that story. So I think just there are many good nuggets in that. I don't necessarily endorse everything he did, but I love the idea that it's about deliberately creating your life. Yeah, not being a victim
That's
to the
awesome.
circumstances. Yeah.
And if someone has a question for you, wants to get in touch, I know you mentioned the podcast. We'll put that in the show notes. What's your preferred method that some people reach out to you if they'd like to get in contact?
Either LinkedIn. I think I'm the only Vered Kogan on LinkedIn, so that's an easy way to connect and to start the conversation, or by email, vered@veredkogan.com.
Awesome. Well, Vered, I'm so grateful for your time today. This was awesome. I appreciate the real play of actually getting to do some of the or participate in the modalities that you work with. But this has been awesome, and I look forward to meeting you at the Vistage Talk this coming year in Bend. So
Yeah, me too.
thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Chris.